bring a little piece of the farm to wherever you are around the world. And please do type in. We'd love to hear, obviously, where you are listening in from right now. We'd love to see how far this first episode goes. But we really want to delve into the DNA, if you like, of Hentley Farm, our beautiful home here, and of course, where we are here in Seppeltsfield, the sub-region where we are, in the beautiful Barossa Valley. Without further ado, I'm going to throw over to a man that needs no introduction. He is, of course, he's our Chief Winemaker Extraordinaire, but he is our master at the absolute helm here. It is Andrew Quin. Andrew, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, mate. Thanks for having me as your first guest. And, look, I knew you'd bring a really strong pants game.
Pant game is strong.
I wasn't sure you'd bring the pink pants game but well done. You look amazing. I feel very underdressed.
No, please don't. This is you in your natural habitat. Just got out of vintage, I understand as well, but we will get there. Cart before the horse. Now, of course, there are people who are watching at the moment who have mostly met you at some stage before, either at a tasting or at a lunch or a dinner, or even had the pleasure of walking around the estate with you personally. I guess from your perspective and your opinion, what does something, I guess, like this, this virtual sort of tasting experience do for people wanting to learn a little bit more about the farm?
Yeah, I think the strength for a little business like us is the ability to bring people to this site and to come into this beautiful Salador, sit down, hear the wine stories, come into the restaurant. And obviously in crazy times like this we can't do that. So yeah, being able to do these sort of tastings, still get the stories out there, I think it's really critical for little businesses like us. It just gives people a chance to still hear the wine stories and hopefully learn a little bit about who we are and what we're about along the way.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting as well because obviously this time of the year, I'm surprised you're still awake, obviously just probably hammer and tongs day and night, obviously just got out of vintage specifically. There's a couple of questions obviously that are floating around, I guess, at the moment that people want to know. The big one, of course, is how is 2020 vintage shaping up?
Sure.
And how's this drought affecting us, I guess?
Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting vintage. It's certainly the drought and we've got some really high winds at flowering as well, so that combination of limited moisture in the soil combining with high winds at flowering has meant that crops have been super low, so droughts had a big impact from that perspective. Yeah. We saw really cool conditions through February and through March. And what tends to happen when you see that sort of cool late ripening is that gives us an extended flavour development period. So things ripening really nice and slowly. It means we don't have to pick the whole vineyard really quickly, so we can get some nice, pretty, lower alcohol wines right up through to those bigger, richer, more intense styles, and that gives us lots of blend options, which is really helpful. But the other thing, we have really cold nights, and cold nights tends to mean you keep acid, and so it's probably the best natural acidity I've seen possibly in my whole time here in Hentley Farm.
Oh, okay.
Both Shiraz and definitely in Rieslings out of Eden Valley. So yeah, droughts had a big impact. The crops are low, but we're seeing great flavour intensity, really balanced wines with good natural acidity. So all looks pretty strong. Amazing.
So they say you're not supposed to choose your children, and as of course you know, I've just had a child recently, so I guess I only have one still at this point. But if you were to choose your absolute favourite out of 2020, something that really has just jumped out at you, obviously we're talking outside of natural acidity, but just something overall that scores a perfect 10 in your eyes, what would you say?
Oh, that's a really tough question, Nick. You're supposed to word me up on the questions. It sounds like the obvious answer, although when I get a question like this, I don't normally give this answer, but everything off the Colorado vineyard is looking pretty absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Which I think they remind me a bit of how the Colorado vineyard looked in 2016, which is along with 12, sort of the strongest vintages we've had of that wine and across the property. So yeah, I'd have to, like I said, it sounds like the obvious answer, but I think the Colorado passes probably look the most exciting.
No, that's what
I normally say Grenache, so it's
that's what I thought. I thought you might have said that, but there's obviously one we prepared earlier.
Yeah.
So that kind of works out pretty well, I'm going to say, pretty convenient. But what we're actually going to do, we have pointed out, obviously, to the media sphere, the social media sphere out there, as to what wines they would like us to basically showcase. So we have actually chosen 3 that we feel are a very good representation of our single estate, single block story here at the farm. But we've actually brought in a bit of a wild card, Andrew. This you don't necessarily know, and it's a good wild card. But for most people who are on our loyalty program, they will know that the Viognier 19 is absolutely sold out. Love or money, you cannot absolutely buy it. But what we decided to do in homage, if you like, of our very first episode, Knockoffs with Nick, we've decided to go back into the cellar and we've actually ripped out the 2018 Viognier, which we're actually going to have a little bit of a try of, along with a couple of other beauties which we're going to go through. But we're going to give everyone the opportunity as well, and I must stress, we really don't have a huge amount of this, but in spirit of obviously doing something different, we are going to give you the opportunity to have a little crack as well after the episode. So, Andrew, if you can tell us a little bit about 2018, particularly the Viognier. Viognier is a pretty interesting varietal. It changes obviously throughout the world.
Yeah.
We've got a pretty unique style here. What do you love about 2018 and the Viognier?
Yeah, I love the 18s are all very bright wines. So I think if you like wines of balance and prettiness, then all of the 18s sort of tell that story really well. Viognier is a variety I've always had a bit of a soft spot for. And I was thinking just earlier about the 18, which is actually the 10th vintage of this wine that we've produced. And it's always super small because the reason we've got the fruit is really for the beauty, for the Shiraz Viognier that we make. And so, yeah, I guess our approach with the Viognier has always been to try and pick it as early as we can, which is often the case in our winemaking. I guess my belief is that if you can get Viognier sort of at 13 and a half Barnay rather than pushing it up towards 15, you'll still get good flavour intensity, but it won't be too over the top. So that's what we've always tried to do, but we also need to try and pick it in combination with the beauty block, and so that can always be challenging. And some years it works and some years it doesn't, and 2018 I think was probably one of the better examples from that perspective. And in terms of winemaking, we pick this block the day before we get the beauty Shiraz off. And the Viognier goes in the press, and we just take the free run juice for this straight Viognier, so the juice that naturally drains out of the press goes straight to barrel, and the wet skins are kept behind for the next day to go into the beauty. So it's only free run, goes straight to barrel, and fermented on high solids. So we're looking for all of those solids to add some texture and add some slightly toasty notes to really add the complexity and the balance to what is otherwise something that's full of stone fruits and aromatic lift, those floral characteristics. So it's a really cool variety. You know, I don't think it's probably as well recognised as it should be. And I think one of the other things I've learned in recent times, I opened the 09, the very first one that I made here, a couple of times over the last 12 months, and gee, they age well.
Yeah.
they age so well, they look so cool, and they keep their fruit, but that toastiness becomes more and more complex, and that sort of roundness and creaminess becomes a really important characteristic of the wines. So you can drink them young and they're really pretty, but geez, if you've got the patience to put it in a cellar for 10 years, it'll look pretty cool as well.
So in terms of, we might as well have a taste. I think that seems fair. You're dehydrated. It's important. We're going to keep it up. In terms of the nose, what would we be expecting? I guess any particular flavours that you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's stone fruits for sure on this one. I get an array of stone fruits and then like a white floral characteristic, but there's also that slight struck match flinty characteristic, which is part the solids, but also it's 30% new French oak. So that little bit of oak influence sometimes comes through as that slight struck match as well. So they're the characteristics I see aromatically. And then the palate's all about texture.
Okay. Should we have a taste?
Sure, let's do it.
We've also got a few people tuning in, lots of hellos.
Hello,
especially, you were called Chris or Liam Hemsworth, Quinny, so quite
fantastic.
similar.
I'm pleased to hear that.
I'd say
really
you're more
similar
Chris.
profiles.
I'd say, don't you reckon?
Yeah, it's got that Chrissy feel.
We've also got Angus.
Setup, that's a setup.
We've also got Angus, our other brand ambassador, and if you were at the recent event in Brisbane, if anyone from Brisbane was there, there is a song, I believe, just the first bar. I think you'll definitely know what this is. I can't remember it. Can you?
I think, if I remember correctly, Nick, I'm pretty sure it went as till as old as time, true as it can be. Something like that, I think.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to hear it, so I kind of wanted to do that because everyone said you're actually really good. So turns out that is the case. That's awesome.
You're not going to ask me to sing, are you?
No, we're not necessarily. And also we've got Holly at the back as well for our marketing guru. That's what I'm going to call her, our marketing guru. But there are lots of people obviously behind the scenes here as well. But we're going to move on to the next one.
Oh, okay.
But, well, actually, no, before we do, let's quickly just talk about the palette on that, obviously. It does have a little bit of that creaminess, which I was actually quite interested in, but there's definitely that steely kind of elegance. It's certainly not those oily, rich styles of Viognier that a lot of people kind of expect when they look at Viognier. I think that was one of the interesting things that I love so much about this style of Viognier.
Sure.
And I think the 18, for me, I think is a really great example of where that's sort of going. But thoughts on...
Well, again, if you pick it early, you keep more acid as well.
Yeah.
We'll sort of come back to the acid conversation, but yeah, I think we've probably got more natural acidity than some of those bigger, riper styles, and so you get a bit more crunch and a bit more of a fine line through the middle of the palate, which helps with food pairing.
Well, we love a bit of food pairing.
Ageability.
Absolutely.
I think it's a positive all round.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I reckon we're going to move on to our next wine, which is, of course, the Grenache. Now, this is a wine which I absolutely, unashamedly wax lyrical about, but I'm going to let you do this because I would love to hear your rendition, I suppose, of why this is an exciting wine, because it really is for us. And we're super proud of what you guys have done, obviously, to create something of this calibre. But why do you love it? What made it awesome for you?
I mean, it's changed a bit over the journey. I think a lot of the people that have listened to me talk about Grenache before have probably heard this before, but I've always said I look back on a couple of the first Grenaches I made for this company, the 2010 and 2012. Really lovely wines, but I felt like looking back on them that we sort of pushed them to look a bit like Shiraz at that point in time. So chase colour and ripeness, and when you look at the grape variety, it's not a big colour variety, it's not a big tannin variety. It's a variety that should be textural, but it should be aromatic and it should be very complex. And so 2014 was sort of when we took a complete direction change and started looking to pick earlier and look for more spice and complexity and worry less about colour and less about richness of fruit. And I think that was the right direction to take, and it's not just us, it's something that's happening across the Barossa, and it's why everyone's getting so excited about this grape variety when it's picked a bit earlier and you use some technique to chase texture and vibrancy. It's just there's so much drinkability about Grenache. Again, there's so much food pairing capacity, and I think it's great for our region because we've got lots of big, rich Shiraz, lots of big, rich Cabernet. It's sort of another string to our bow, I think, having Grenache produced in this style. And so in terms of winemaking, what we do now is we use a reasonable amount of whole bunch. So I think this wine was about 30% whole bunch. Okay. But what we've done since 2014, that's probably a bigger part of our winemaking story in Grenache, is we use a lot of extended maceration. So time on skins, really trying to, I guess, fill and soften the tannin profile, but also refined. We've got our 20 still sitting on skins now, so I was tasting that ferment this morning, looking at it. Well, it's not a ferment anymore. We find that we lose some of that real simplicity. Yeah. Sometimes Grenache can fail if it's too much about all that confected fruit, the strawberries and the raspberries. You want some of that, but you don't want it to be all about that. And with time on skins, we tend to build spice and build earth and then really fill and soften. So the negative of that approach is those wines end up very savoury, but then we've got that whole bunch component. Whole bunch brings brightness and lift. And so as a result, you just end up with something that's so drinkable, so complex, so bright, so textured. Like it just works. And that's why we love them.
Yeah. Now, just in a question that has just come in on this wine, which I'm super excited to hear what this question is. Talk me through it. What is the question?
Quinny, what is the difference between the fruit from the Barossa, so from Hentley Farm, in comparison to the fruit from McLaren Vale for this particular wine?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I haven't worked in McLaren Vale, so I don't know the fruit down there that well, but I think probably we tend to produce Grenache that is a little bit prettier, a little bit brighter, where the McLarens that I've tried tend to probably be a little bit more structured. So I think they tend to naturally get, I'm not sure why, but a bit more tannin structure in their wines, where we look for more prettiness and more vibrancy. But yeah, good question. I should taste more McLaren Vale Grenaches and I'll probably have a better answer.
I love it. All right. So I jumped ahead. I tasted the wine.
Oh, right.
Well done. But if we were to throw some notes around, every event that I go to where I talk about this particular wine, will always talk about savoury strawberry jam. For me, that is what this kind of jumps out at. But is there anything particularly that you were looking for when you were sort of creating this from an aromatics perspective?
Yeah, I mean, spice is important.
Yeah.
And I see things like fennel. I see some fennel, and I tend to see it. That's one of the characteristics that when we're leaving them on skins, I think we're getting close to being in a position to press it once we start to see that fennel character come through. I mean, Turkish delight is a characteristic of Grenache off this vineyard
Yeah.
in spades. So they're probably two characteristics. There's always going to be strawberries and raspberries, and I like your descriptor because it started with the word savoury. And if we didn't use all of that extended maceration, your descriptor might not have savoury. But the savoury element comes from that time on skins and to an extent the stalk in the bunch.
Yeah.
And great Grenache, well, great wine should really have a savoury edge. It shouldn't all be about fruit sweetness. So, they're sort of the characteristics that we're looking for.
Okay.
I lost track.
No, I think that's a really nice, and as you can see, I've also had another sip while you were talking.
Good.
You know I like this wine, of course. Let's cheers and think about, and we're going to move on to the other wines very shortly, but we'll just have one more. I think it's important.
That is knock-off drinks, right? So that's all good.
That's exactly right. It's self-time. It's in the show.
Yeah.
It's
Not
in the
much
show.
drinks. You're in your pink pants. I mean,
I know. I'm glad you are really on board with my pants today. Great wine, obviously got a beautiful natural acidity that we're looking for in this as well. But you're very modest because you didn't say the big thing about this, which is obviously the Barossa wine show. Do you want to quickly?
yeah, so we did really well this year.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I'm fortunate enough to be around watching the judging during the show week, and one of the things I remember about this year's show was just how excited the judges were going through the Grenache class. It is obviously the cool kid in the Barossa at the moment, so and just watching them taste through a class of about 60 Grenaches, and at the end of it they were super excited about the quality of the wines across the board. And yeah, we were lucky enough to be the wine that stuck its head up in that class as best Grenache.
And how many wines were in that class?
In that class, it was about 60 wines, so that was a great result.
Yep.
And then obviously how it works is that at the end of the show, once all the classes have been
Yep.
judged, the best of each class goes against each other, and the judges have the very challenging job of picking one wine to be the best wine of the entire show. And yeah, we were lucky enough that our Grenache got up and got the big gong for wine of show at the 2018 Barossa show, which is the first time we've done that, and that's a huge result. So yeah,
Huge. Absolutely. Congratulations again. We have another question just come in.
We've got a few coming in. Lots
Okay.
of comments about the pants. Loving them.
Good.
Really great,
Many
bold
thanks.
choice.
Many thanks.
We had a question. I wouldn't really say it's a question, but Angus,
Hey?
please help yourself to a glass of wine. You've been invited to have a glass with the boys for knockoff, and we also had a comment. Well, kind of just a
Social distancing and all. This is very important.
Stay where you are.
That's a good point.
Quinny, what wine or what grape that doesn't feature in any of our current collections would you potentially like to experiment with in the future?
Yeah, really good question.
Great question.
Yeah, Matara is probably one that comes to mind. I love Matara. It's a challenging variety to work with, challenging variety to get right. But I love all the pepper and the tannin structure and the colour intensity from really good Matara. So that's one great variety that comes to mind. We've talked over the years going to a cooler climate area and finding some good Pinot. So I'd love to make a Pinot. And then the other one that's really hard to get right is Nebbiolo. So that's a great variety that interests me a lot as well. So there are probably three that I'd be interested in.
Ooh.
Beautiful. You've outdone yourself there, Quinny.
Yeah, my last answer.
And then another quick question we've got here. Which aged vintages are showing well relative to the 18 vintage range?
Yeah, great question. 2012 is aging really well. It will surprise everyone, but the 11s are aging incredibly well. They still have a more sort of European feel about them. They don't have quite the fruit intensity of other vintages, but they're holding their tannin structure and looking really fresh. Yeah, they're holding up really well. They're the two that come to mind. The older vintages, I must admit, I haven't had a look at lately. I think it's probably maybe a couple of years since I looked at the 06, and that was looking really strong, both Clos and Beast. So yeah.
Beautiful. And just a couple of quick questions before we go. Nick, Cara and Alan, all the way from Hayman, say hi. They're loving the red pants as well.
Oh, yes, hello. That's awesome.
They're not red.
We're over at Hayman Island. G'day, guys. Awesome. Thank you for joining.
Beautiful. And then we've also got a comment. Quinny, opening the 2012 on Casper tonight. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I love that wine. Yeah, that was one of our most successful Von Caspers, and I have a really big soft spot for Von Casper. It's just got so much aromatic intensity, and yeah, I absolutely love the Von Casper. And 2012 was a 98 point wine, I think, with Halliday that year. It was one of the wines that took us to winery of the year. So yeah, it'll look bright and fresh, and yeah, they hold on so well, those Cabernets. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your questions. Of course, there is still one wine left.
Yes.
So I know, looks almost like we've done an entree, main, and dessert for a knockoff, so to speak. But of course, we have left the most heaviest to last. We've gone to the Quintessential, of course. Bit of a play on words, some people say, but this might be an opportunity for you to 100% debunk that theory. But of course,
sure.
the Quintessential is a quintessential example of the blend which was birthed here in the Barossa Valley. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly in Australia anyway. Yeah, it's the sort of the idea of the name is it's the quintessential Australian red blend.
But nothing to do with your name.
I told Keith when he came up with the name, everyone would think it was named after me, and he assured me that I would never have to answer this question, and yet I'm probably up to answering about 1,000 times.
You've heard it here first/third.
Definitely not named after me.
Fifth.
Yeah, Keith is Keith Henschke watching? You might comment.
Is
I hope so.
yeah.
Is he really? I better not hang too much shit on him there.
Welcome, Keith, our owner and founder.
Hello, boss.
I hope you're enjoying. Obviously, he'd be in a nice chair, I would have thought, like us.
Probably.
Okay,
With a
good.
cigar, maybe.
So we're on to the Quintessential. We're on to the 17, which is the current release, obviously, of that. What's your thoughts? Tell us about how this is settling.
Yeah, so it's got in terms of the history, it sort of starts, the story of why we make this wine starts with creation. So 2010 creation was actually H-Block, which is a Shiraz Cabernet blend that worked really well for us. And then the year after, we produced our first Quintessential, which at the time was a Shiraz Cabernet, and then from then moving forward, 2012 onwards, we had H-Block and Quintessential.
Yeah.
And in the early days, I get in terms of blend percentages, they were quite similar. But we've taken a slight change in direction in terms of, with the Quintessential, we're using a little bit more Cabernet. And so we're sort of sitting up at about, most years, around about 50-50 Cab to Shiraz, where H-Block still sits at 70-30. It is, I guess, an important part of our single block story that you mentioned earlier, in that it comes predominantly off two parcels of this property. So one being D4 Winery, which is the little patch between Salador and the winery, which is the Shiraz.
Yep.
And then C1, which is a block up on the western hillside. So again, time on skins is big in this wine. So both the Cabernet and the Shiraz have spent about 45-50 days on skins. Same story, trying to build that spice and fill and soften the tannin profile. But with more Cabernet, you would have heard me talk about this before, particularly with our hillside Cabernets, the blocks up on that western hillside, we try to pick them reasonably early and try and retain as much varietal character as we can. So that Cabernet off the hillside tends to be quite medium weighted and really aromatic and really lifted. And this wine sits in the same price range as the Grenache, the Old Legend we've just tried, and the Beauty. And so as a price point, they're all quite pretty wines, quite balanced wines, quite soft wines. And that's sort of one of the reasons why we've taken that slight style direction change and varietal direction change with the Quintessential, which you can see in the wine. It's just all the sort of plums and the herbaceousness really jumping out of the glass.
I think we should have a taste and a smell.
Let's do that.
Cheers again.
Cheers.
We're going to cheers next time.
That's
not
boss.
Yeah.
I think it's where's your drink, mate?
Yeah, where's yours?
Oh mate, I put my bottle back in, don't you worry about that. Of course, always RSA,
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read out some comments that have come through whilst you guys are enjoying.
And very much enjoying.
Very much enjoying.
That is awesome.
We've got a viewer from Singapore, Tim.
Wow.
He's going to be enjoying the Von Caspar 2012 as well tonight.
Cool. So Singapore's as far as we go, I believe. Is there any other?
I'm not too sure. You'll have to let us know, guys. Put in the comment section.
Yeah, please. Where are you tuning in from? So to speak? That is what it is. Tuning in, I believe.
You can call it whatever you want.
Tuning in is where we are. That Quintessential is shaping up very nicely. Sellerability on that, what would you say?
Definitely 15 years, yeah, maybe 20. It's sort of in that sort of range. I mean, I think it's probably not that far removed from where you'd expect the beast to get to. Maybe slightly longer ageability than the Beauty, because it's got a little bit more tannin structure and more intensity and power. So
beautifully.
15 to 20 years is probably about where I'd be putting it. You can drink it today though.
No,
it's pretty
most
tasty.
definitely. I am. We've got another question just come in. I feel like I should do this.
Coming in live.
Yes.
We've got a couple of people enjoying Zinfandel, which is a really interesting one.
Which vintage?
Yeah, give us a vintage.
Vintage 16.
Right.
We're actually a few 16s here. We've also got someone enjoying the 16 Grenache. Said it was outstanding. we've got David who's enjoying the 2013 Beauty and
Yes.
about to get started on that too. So
He
they've
told
had
me. He said, Nick, I'm going to drink this tonight. So David, you delivered. Cheers to you and Mandy, freshly married, which is pretty cool. So from all of us here at the farm, congratulations.
Cheers.
So do we have any other people?
We've got
Like
a big comment coming in live from Keith. He said, great job, guys. And yes, Quintessential is named because it's the quintessential Australian wine, unfortunately not after Andrew. So
I told you. You didn't believe me.
In my heart, it is still. So I'm just going to say it that way. So awesome. So we've had a really good look at this lineup here as well. So we've obviously, just to recap, obviously what we've had a look at. We've had a look at the 2018 Viognier, which, you know, I mean, all of these are drinking beautifully at the moment, but we're going into obviously the 2018 Old Legend Grenache with the accolades and obviously the style which is sympathetic to Grenache nowadays rather than being those big sort of bold, intense styles. And then obviously this Quintessential, which is drinking beautifully at the moment. This has been a lot of fun. Have you enjoyed yourself?
I have.
Oh.
I mean, I think your pants have probably lifted the whole experience.
Well, if we can do that. Well, I guess the exciting thing is this was a bit of a trial run, to be perfectly honest, in many respects. Because I've had so much fun and you've had fun.
I have,
believe,
yeah.
Angus, have you had fun as
I
well?
have had fun.
Good, this works.
Always been very exciting.
We've had some discussions. We decided that we might actually put a little bit of a pack out to our database, so our Clo room members, our Tally room members, and obviously friends of the farm. And what we wanted to really do was kind of encapsulate the essence of the farm by showcasing a couple of different wines, by showcasing a couple of different vintages, and kind of doing an ongoing sort of experience. So over the next couple of weeks, you're going to get something coming into your inbox in the next, I'm not sure exactly when, but I just want to put that out there to you. Expect it at some point and through the social media channels. But we're actually going to put a pack offer out to you, which will allow you to taste along with us, because I'm really happy with how today went. So I think off the basis of that, I think we're going to go ahead with it, which is fantastic. And so if you're very new to us and you've never heard about Hentley Farm before, shame on you. No, don't do that. If you've never heard about Hentley Farm before, this is your first experience with us, please head to the website hentleyfarm.com.au and sign up as a friend of the farm. We would love for you to obviously join the Hentley Farm family, so that obviously you can receive that particular offer there as well. Obviously with government legislation and the times that we are in, there has been some changes this week, which has actually been really exciting. We've actually just introduced a click and collect option here at the cellar door. So takeaways, so to speak, is probably not the word I'm using, but I'm going to use it right now. And so it's an option to basically phone up and obviously make your order or online, whichever way works best, and then basically come for a cruisy drive through the Barossa, because obviously all this social isolation, you're still socially isolated in the car. So come out here, obviously we would love to obviously have you, and so you can obviously pick up your wines there of course as well. But please keep an eye on your email. I'm going to do one last cheers, Andrew, because I'm really into them.
Which one?
Choose yours, whichever.
The winner, eh?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
But guys, cheers to you, by the way. Cheers to you guys. I really hope you've had fun. It's our very first episode, obviously, of Knockoffs with Nick. Join us next week, or next time rather. You'll find out all about this. It's all through the channels. But guys, from all of us here, thank you. We are so pumped to see you next time. Cheers to you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
we're done.
We're done.
We had 195 viewers, and fucking so many people commenting like,
Wow.
Yeah, there were heaps of comments like coming through because I didn't even read them all out. People like, I'm here from New Zealand and like all this stuff. Yeah,
That's
so it was really good.
That's serious
Yeah,
engagement.
and heaps of people were saying like, great job. So I'm sure like everyone will see the